Hello, and welcome to Coxreels Tech Tips. We're standing out on one of Coxreels' assembly lines, and today we're going to be talking about replacing the spring can, sometimes called a spring motor or a cartridge motor, on a spring rewind pedestal style reel. Before we begin, let's talk a little bit about safety. Anytime you're working with a sheet metal product, it's always a good idea to have gloves on. And it does help to have a reel mounted, although you can do this on a bench top if you need to. The tools that we're going to need for this are fairly simple. We're going to need a wrench big enough to take off our swivel. You're going to need a wrench to take off an inlet line if your reel is already installed and connected. You're going to need a 3/8 nut driver, socket, or a wrench. You're going to need a set of external snap ring pliers. You're going to need some kind of little hammer. And you're going to need a couple of large screwdrivers, flathead preferably, but anything will work. And then a Phillips screwdriver. I have a power screwdriver here. Now, the reel that we're doing this demo on, is a PLP 350. The same concept applies to all of the reels in this class, all the way from the 24s down to the 13s. At the end of the video, we'll do a little short in case you have a T-Series, which has a few extra parts that you have to go through to get it to look like this, and then you can follow the exact same steps. Okay, so our first step is going to be to remove the tension from the reel. Now, you may not have any tension on the reel since you're replacing your spring can, but I'll go ahead and go through this step so everybody sees it. We're going to pull out some hose and we're going to latch it in place, and then I'm going to take off the ball stop. It's done with the Phillips screwdriver. Okay, and then I'm going to unlatch the reel and let it wind itself until we lose all tension. Carefully making sure the reel doesn't get out of control. I don't want to be whipping anybody with hoses, including myself. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and tuck this in so that it's not flopping around while we're working on it. Okay, we have the reel in a neutral position, and the next step is going to be to remove the swivel. And do that taking advantage of one of Coxreels' unique features, which is an external fluid path. Requires me just to break the swivel loose and then remove it from the stud by hand. Okay, we'll set that aside. We're going to remove the snap ring that is holding the whole drum assembly onto the axle using our snap ring pliers. Snap ring. And there's a black plastic washer. And the next thing we're going to do is loosen the nuts that are on the other side of these studs. You never have to loosen these studs. There's a nice little yellow label right here that tells you, do not take this nut off. So don't take that nut off. You turn the reel around, and on the back side, you will find either 2 or on the larger reels 4 nuts. That is what your 3/8 nut driver is for. You will remove your either 2 or 4 nuts depending on your reel model, and you don't have to worry about anything falling apart. This is all still a good assembly. Now, at this point, we're basically ready to pull the spring can out from inside of the drum assembly, but it's not going to come easily. The first thing to do is to take our little hammer and lightly tap on our 2 studs here to get the studs to actually go through the holes on the discs. Okay, now we still have to do a little extra step to be able to get this off. The arbor, which is the center part of the spring motor or spring can assembly, is a very tight fit onto the axle, and it doesn't just slide off. You can't just push this whole assembly off. What we need to do is we need to actually pry it off. And that's what the 2 screwdrivers are for. What we're going to do is we're going to take our 2 screwdrivers, we're going to insert them between the pedestal and the locking ring. Now, the locking ring is the part with the teeth on there. If you have a T-Series or an SH Series, it might be a little deeper inside the can than it is on this model, but the principle and the concept is the same. So we're going to slide them in, and we're going to push at the same time, prying the drum assembly away from the pedestal. We're not going to try and pry it all the way off. We're just going to pry it enough to get the spring can arbor off of the shaft. So, like so. Insert, insert, pry. Okay? So, we've got the drum separated enough that the spring can, you can see the arbor here, the center section is off of the actual axle. So all we have to do now is wiggle on our studs to get our spring can motor out. Now, we can push this assembly back on, and you're going to need it to slide all the way back. And then this is a Coxreels spring motor or spring can cartridge. It has two sides to it, and you'll know which side goes out because it has a yellow sticker. On the back side is a white sticker, and that tells you the part number of this spring can. You never have to take this apart. Don't take these studs off. You want to keep it nice and safe. There's a lot of spring tension in here. If you open it up, spring could go flying everywhere. This is another feature of Coxreels, that we never make anybody take a spring apart. Okay. So I'm going to return this spring can to it, like this is your brand new spring can. And again, yellow sticker out. And what we're going to do is we're going to align the center D. So the shaft has a D on it, and our spring can has a D on it, a flat, if you were. We just need to line those two up when we slide the two together. And then we need to align up our studs with the holes in the disc. So I'll find my D, find the D on the axle, slide it on, and I'm going to use my hand here to hold the spring can steady, and I'm going to turn the disc, and until I find the stud finds the hole, then I'll push them together. I've got one of them in, and I'll go ahead and put a nut on the one that's through so it doesn't fall back out when I push on the other one. Okay, and then this one I'll line up. Give it a lovely friendly tap. And we'll use our 3/8 nut driver to go ahead and reinstall our nuts. Tighten them down. And our next step will be to complete the assembly of the front. Now, we're going to be putting the plastic washer back on and the snap ring. And in order to do that, the drum assembly has to be slid all the way up against the pedestal in order to make room for these parts. If you're sliding it on and it seems like it won't go on far enough, it's probably because you're hitting the locking dog. So this is a real assembly with the discs removed. This is the bearing assembly. This is the locking ring. And this is the locking dog. So if you have this turned the wrong way and you're hitting it, you can't put it in all the way. So all you got to do is turn your drum so that you can clear it. Okay? Okay, so with all of our stuff in place, we'll put our plastic washer back first, then our metal snap ring using our snap ring pliers. Okay, and then we will reinstall our swivel just like we took it off. Slide it on, and then we will tighten it. Remember, this isn't a liquid connection or a fluid connection. You don't need to tighten it hard. You just need to snug up the stud. And the assembly of our spring can is essentially complete. Now, what we have here is a reel without any tension. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some tension on this to start with. We're going to put 3 pre-wraps. So from the neutral position, what we're going to do is we're going to wind the reel up 3 times and then latch it in place, fish the hose through, put on our ball stop. So the easiest way is make sure your hose end is still tucked in between. Find the neutral, pick a spot, and you're going to rotate it as if the hose was being pulled out by an operator. Okay, so in this case it's like this, going out of the roller bracket. So 1, 2, 3. Latched in place. That's our 3 pre-wraps. And we have a separate video on the Coxreels YouTube channel which shows you how to add and remove pre-wraps if you need to adjust the tension from this point. So please refer to that one for future adjustment. And I'll go ahead and reinstall the ball stop, which is essentially opposite of taking it off. Remember, this is just rubber. There's no point to tighten past the point where the rubber touches. And that is how you replace the spring can on a Coxreels spring-driven pedestal-style reel. Thank you for watching Tech Tips. Please check out our YouTube channel and have a nice day. Welcome to the short on the T-Series. We're doing this because the T-Series looks a little bit different than the P-Series. Process is exactly the same. I just wanted to show you what to do with this bracket and this arm and how to get the swivel off so that you can follow the exact steps that we just outlined. So the first step is going to be to remove this bracket, these 3 bolts, and the last step is going to be to remove the snap ring. Now with all of the bolts loose, I'll go ahead and I'll pull off the snap ring. With the arm removed, we can now follow the exact steps that were outlined in the beginning part of the video for the P and the SH series. Thank you for listening to Coxreels Tech Tips. Stay tuned for some more tips on our website and on our YouTube channel, and have a nice day.